Now, I think it's hard to talk about the superintendent as a leader without acknowledging that states and districts, with support from Washington, need to do much more to improve preparation programs and professional development opportunities for superintendents. The vast majority of superintendents start as teachers, go on to become principals, and eventually, after taking courses at an ed school to earn a master's degree or a PhD, become superintendents. Under our proposed new Teacher and Leaders Pathways programs, $170 million will be dedicated to principals and other school leaders, more than 5 times the funding available last year for leadership programs. We want to reward excellence and compensate principals and teachers who are boosting student achievement in struggling schools and in hard-to-staff subjects. This program will support partnerships between LEAs and SEAs and institutions of higher education or nonprofits to prepare and recruit principals and school leadership teams to work in low-performing schools. Historically, our department has dramatically underinvested in leadership, and that's about to change. But more broadly, I think we need to ask if certification requirements and preparation programs reflect what we know about effective leadership. Successful superintendents don't just need a PhD in educational administration. Even more than educational theory, superintendents need hands-on vocational training. Superintendents require business skills, expertise in dealing with the media, the ability to negotiate with a variety of stakeholders, and a command of budgeting. And first and foremost, they must be relentless in driving educational improvement. These skills can be hard to acquire in the traditional classroom. Tom Pezant, the former superintendent in Boston, served as superintendent in 5 different states. Each time, he had to take a new course to be certified as a superintendent. Once he took a course in special education, a subject he could have taught better than the instructor. In another state, he took a textbook-based course in how to teach elementary reading, where he filled in bubbles on multiple-choice quizzes. These courses were a waste of his time. Of course, everyone in a leadership position in schools must be a continuous learner. But preparation programs and professional development for superintendents should be more outcome-based and grounded in the evidence of what really works in the classroom, whether you are talking about overseeing turnaround schools or the development and support of effective teachers. The truth is that superintendent preparation programs, very few of them track their graduates to see how many even become superintendents. And no preparation programs we have found, with the exception of the Broad Academy for Superintendents, actually tracks the impact of superintendents on student achievement. That has got to change. District-driven change is the only way to get improvement at scale. And we must do better supporting you as you strive to change your students' lives. Now, I don't think any discussion of leading from the superintendent's chair would be complete without pointing out the great opportunities that lie ahead for superintendents in the reauthorization of ESEA. I will always give credit to NCLB for exposing achievement gaps and advancing standards-based reform. But better than anyone, you all know NCLB's shortcomings. NCLB allows, even encourages, states to lower their standards. In too many classrooms, it encourages teachers to narrow the curriculum. Everywhere I traveled, I heard that complaint from students, from parents, and from teachers. It relies too much on bubble tests in a couple of subjects. It mislabels schools, even when they are showing meaningful progress on important measures. NCLB required you to intervene in schools in a prescribed way, and the accountability system didn't measure growth. It didn't differentiate between a school in a little bit of trouble with a handful of students and a school that was an education meltdown. Too often, it was a blunt instrument, a hammer used to simply label failure. That can and must change. We can begin to identify success and learn from what is working to drive student achievement. When we reauthorize ESEA, superintendents are going to be asked to lead. We don't think you need us to specify what every school should do in year 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of AYP. How can we do that from Washington? What are going to be our guiding principles for reauthorization? First, the President and I believe that we should be tight on standards. We have to set a high bar, but loose about how schools and districts and states get to that higher bar. All children need to aim to reach high standards and to be college and career ready without the need for remediation. We must stop dumbing down standards due to political pressure and stop lying to children and families by giving them a low bar and telling them they'll be okay when we know that they're inadequately prepared. I'm so pleased that 48 states, 48 governors, and 48 school chiefs are now working together towards that goal. Not because of a federal mandate, not because of anything we're going to do, but because of their shared belief that high expectations will lead to higher student achievement. Both major unions, the business community, and national nonprofits are all rallying behind this effort. Secondly, as we move forward, we want to reward excellence, to encourage state and local educators to challenge themselves and to hold themselves accountable. To compete in the global economy, we're going to have to fund what works and challenge conventional wisdom and move outside of our comfort zones. Finally, we want to redefine the federal role so local educators will have maximum flexibility where it makes the most sense, and parents and taxpayers will have maximum accountability where that is most needed. The federal government needs to help strike the right balance between flexibility and accountability, offering support, not prescriptions. For example, chronically underperforming schools in the bottom 5%, not the 95%, but the bottom 5% of all schools, have been ignored and allowed to stagnate for far too long. If you have 20 schools in your district, think about that one school at the very bottom, and what has to happen to give those children a better chance at life. We're going to ask for rigorous change in those schools, and the federal government is going to provide generous incentives to implement those changes. But in the vast majority of schools, those schools in the middle of the performance spectrum, we want local districts to have much more flexibility than they currently have under NCLB to improve educational outcomes. And for the top performing schools, not just in absolute measures, but in terms of growth and gain, those top performing schools, which we think have often been largely ignored, we want them to receive incentives, additional flexibility, and help lead the way for us nationally in replicating and building upon educational excellence. I am optimistic that the three principles I've outlined for ESEA reauthorization, high standards, rewarding excellence, and a smarter, less prescriptive federal role, have widespread support among both Democrats and Republicans. We very much look forward to working on ESEA reauthorization in a bipartisan manner. Education has to be, must be, the one issue where we put politics and ideology to the side and simply do what's best for children. Now, it's no secret that to make this ambitious vision a reality, we've got to prepare, recruit, and retain great principals and great teachers. I've often said that talent matters tremendously in schools. That if we're serious about closing the achievement gap, we have to first close what I call the opportunity gap. You have all seen firsthand how great principals and great teachers can transform a school and its students. And in fact, many of you were those extraordinary teachers and principals. We're moving forward on several fronts to support teachers and principals and boost the quality of instruction. But that agenda starts with better data and to measure effectiveness in learning in the classroom. I've said repeatedly, and will repeat here, that we need to use multiple measures of student achievement and never just rely on one test score, and that better data must inform classroom instruction. I'm much more interested in student growth and gain than absolute test scores. I want every child to be challenged, not just that small percent around the proficiency cut score. We see that far too often today.